Most people's finances are in an utter mess. And we're not just talking about the UK, although it's the same in the UK, it's the same in most places. Most people's finances are in an utter mess. 7.9 million adults in the UK have used credit cards, overdrafts or loans to deal with the cost of living rise. It's crazy.
And I just want to put that in even less sort of, I think of that as fluffy terms, like they're going into debt.
They're going into
Using
debt.
credit cards, overdrafts or loans means going into debt, borrowing money to just cope with living, let alone doing anything else.
And 41% of us cannot survive a month without income. Means if we lose our job, something changes. Like, we can't survive with a month without income without going into debt.
That's 2 out of every 5 people, which is shocking. And here we've got 69% have less than 10,000 in savings. So about 7 out of 10 people don't really have any savings whatsoever.
Which leads to one of the most shocking ones of all. Millions of us are facing poverty in retirement. Currently, the Institute of Fiscal Studies has warned us that 90% of young people are saving too little in their pension to be able to retire comfortably. That's crazy.
So flipping that around as well is like 1 in 10 people are saving enough. Just 1 in 10. That's far too low.
Yeah, there's probably 10 people on this live stream right now. Only one of you is saving enough for retirement.
Which one of you is it?
Which one is it? And the fascinating thing is we don't even really know the scale of the problem. There are some hard stats. There's some self-reported stats, but we don't really know the scale of the problem that's coming.
The reason being as well that individuals don't know the extent of their own problem, and most people's money management techniques look something like this. Put your head in the sand and hope that everything's going to be okay. Magically, something's going to happen. I'm going to wake up in 20 years' time, be retired, and everything be okay.
Because they obviously diligently read their pension statement every time it comes through. They choose their funds, they manage their money. Like, no one is really doing that. They're just hoping, fingers crossed, hoping that it will be okay.
And we'd love to know, can you answer these simple questions about your money? So first of all, do you know how much you spend a month? And when we ask most people this, they'll say, yes, I know how much I spend. They generally fail under cross-examination because we want to know exactly how much they spend. People tend to just tell us their fixed costs, what their mortgage or rent is, what their car payment is, maybe if they have one, what their utility bills are, and they'll have this number in their head, which is wildly inaccurate. There's so many other costs, and people think that that's all that they're spending and then wonder why they can't get ahead, wonder why they have nothing at the end of the month.
Yeah, so please type this in the chat for us. Do you know how much you spend a month exactly? We would love to know that. Do you know how much money you have? Do you know what your net worth is exactly? This is like a really important thing. Are you tracking how much of all of this money you've earned over the years that you're actually keeping or not? It's fascinating.
I love this picture of you, Alan. This is, do you know how much you need to retire? How will you know when you're able to retire? Do you know exactly how much you need?
Yeah, Jesslyn says, nice aged photo of Alan. Yeah, I'm not sure I aged that well there.
That is my future. That's my husband in the future. I look forward to that.
Don't say it. Do you have a plan for how to get to retirement? Do you know how you're going to get from where you are working to retirement, how you're going to have enough? Because you might know a number, but you don't know how to get there. And
final question, do you know what your retirement funds are invested in? And you might be thinking, what do you mean invested in? I'm an investor. Yes, you are an investor through auto enrollment. You are investing money, and most people have no clue whatsoever what those funds are invested in. We all have to be investors now because the old life plan does not exist anymore. I am sorry to tell you. This was the plan, Alan.
The plan was get a good education. Once you've got the education, get a good job. Once you've got a good job, work for the company for 40 years, retire with a final salary pension. Oh, those were the days.
The company will look after you in your retirement because you've done such a good job for them and they want to reward you for that. This just doesn't exist anymore. We put a little asterisk there because in some countries it does exist.
In Japan, and
maybe
there's the odd government job that still gives you a final pension salary.
But even those, they're changing them now, aren't they? And they will sort of change the goalpost even as you start to, time goes on as well. So they just can't be relied on anymore. And that plan definitely cannot be relied on for most people, because those sorts of pensions no longer exist. So
I'm loving seeing the chat. A lot of people are saying they do know the questions on this, which if you've come along to a financial inclusion and financial literacy workshop, hopefully you can answer some of those questions. But it'd be interesting if you went out into the general population, how many people do you think would be able to answer where their retirement funds are invested or what they're doing?
Yeah, Gemma says, yes, I know, I love a spreadsheet. Gemma's a financial and digital inclusion officer. So
I love that.
Representing there. Dalreen says, yes, I know. Angela says, I know my exact annual spend, as does Stephen, who says, I've run a spreadsheet for a few years.
I love that. I love that. And that's how you get on top of your numbers and you start to understand where you're going, what you're doing. But the fascinating thing is we've been given the responsibility, or actually not even given, we've been forced on us the responsibility with auto enrollment and different things to look after our own pensions,
but not the education to know how to go about doing that. And it seems like a scary thing for people to do, isn't it? Because, oh, I need to invest for my future. How do I do that? How does it work? How much do I need to put away? And we're not taught this stuff.
It's left to parents to teach their kids, which I didn't get an amazing financial education from my parents. I spent most of the time fighting my dad's debt.
A couple of nuggets of wisdom, but it's kind of this birth lottery, and often the blind leading the blind, that, you know, our parents and their parents weren't taught about money. So how are we magically meant to know how it works?
And in this country, in the UK, we are pretty much financially illiterate. There was a recent study done, and only 27% of the people who took the study actually passed the financial literacy test. And it's fascinating. We're just not good with money. We're just not good with it in general.
And this makes us vulnerable. So the finance industry preys on that ignorance. And I use that word prey deliberately. We are being preyed on. We don't understand how these things work, and companies can take advantage of that, whether that's the credit card companies who put the minimum payments front and center on your statements. Like, that's the main number on the statement, not, you know, the full balance, how much you owe overall. That's way further down. It's like, oh, this is the only amount you have to pay, and that's presented as that's the important figure. And they get you to use these credit cards with the YOLO, you only live once, you deserve it, you might as well put it on the credit card. And it's just irresponsible.
They suck you in with a 0% interest deal. They get you into the credit card. Like, they're not doing this to be nice. They're not doing it to help you. Do you know how long it would take to pay off a credit card on minimum repayments? If you just had a credit card, set it on minimum payments, say you had borrowed 10 grand, like, how long does it take to pay that off? And minimum payments are only 1% in this country. It's 1% plus the interest, which could be 25, 30, 40, 50% on some cards. It is insane. So we're waiting to see if any of you guessed, but I'm going to give you the answer. 26 years and 3 months.
Don't forget the 3 months. 26 years. If you imagine, I'm 39 now, it would take, what 26 years? I'll be 65 if I just did minimum payments to pay off something that I probably didn't even remember what I put on the credit card.
And the companies are out to get you. You have the next day delivery on different things with a representative APR of 42.9%, which is horrendous. If you don't know that's horrendous, it is horrendous.
We had to click through a few screens to get to this, but this is not front and center on the main website. This is kind of the small print that most people don't read.
But you can have your clothes, your PlayStation today and pay for it later. Financial advisors are taking advantage of you when you've got your funds invested, and they're like, it's only 1% of your money that we'll take each year and we will manage it well. And they are completely taking advantage of you. You look at companies like Wealthify and St. James's Place, and they charge you for poor service. You pay extra to destroy people's financial future.
And it doesn't sound like a lot, but that 1% and the way it compounds over time really eats into your retirement pot that you're working diligently to build.
We're vulnerable to scams, and I think we were running Rebel Finance School this year, and we asked for the debt case study, and there was a lady that came forward who said she was in heavy debt. And we asked how it had happened. She said she'd started investing. She got added to a WhatsApp group about investing. and the WhatsApp group was about investing in cryptocurrency. She started to do some due diligence. She got interested. She shared a few messages. She checked with other investors in the group who all seemed to be getting a return. And then she invested her first £500, which she saw a return on.
Yeah, she was pleased. She's like, okay, this seems legit. I've got my money, not only my money back, but also some return, some income return on it. So then she thought, okay, I'm going to put £1,000 in. And again, she started to see a return, started to see some money coming back. And she thought, okay, this is great. And the people in the group encouraged her to borrow money to invest further.
They said, you've got to go full in. You've seen it works. Now it's time to go full in. She borrowed £45,000 to go full in on this cryptocurrency thing. And she lost every single penny. And that's when she came to us, and we're trying to help her figure out how she can rearrange her money, how she can get out of her debt, how she can pay it off. The police basically said, there's nothing we can do, go away. There is zero support.
And I think as people get older as well, they're even more susceptible to these things because they're desperate and kind of panicked, making up for lost time that maybe they didn't invest earlier. So they are much more susceptible to fall for these things because they want it so much to be true. And hype and FOMO, fear of missing out, are also used as weapons, particularly in social media. Like, everyone else is investing in crypto, you should too. You need to get involved in this. And these are the things that without any education, without any understanding, we are extremely vulnerable to. And people can fall for these tricks quite easily because of that lack of understanding.
So how did we end up here? How did we end up in this pickle of a finances? It's a mess. I think, number one, we're not really taught how to manage our finances. We're not really taught money. I wasn't taught at school. Maybe it's getting better now, but we're still not taught particularly about money, and no one really teaches you to invest and do these things. We rely on our parents to learn. But fascinating, society almost forbids us from talking about money. Particularly
in the UK, and I know that's true in other cultures as well, that money is a taboo subject, like it's seen as dirty or not the right sort of thing to be talking about around the dinner table or with friends, and you're not supposed to talk about how much you earn. And yeah, it's seen as bad to talk about this stuff. So how on earth are we going to learn about it if we're not talking about it? How do we educate ourselves?
And the fascinating thing, the British culture and a lot of cultures around the world is saying, if the tallest flower gets cut first, the tallest blade of grass gets cut first. Like, if you're successful, we love to pull people down. We love to pull people down. So you don't want to talk about your success.
Yeah, so don't be successful as well, because if I'm successful, people are going to judge me. People are going to, they're just going to,
rich is seen as a bad thing.
Exactly. People are just going to drag me down. So why would I even bother? And why? Definitely, if I was, then I wouldn't talk about it.
And we did an article, we were in, Katie was in the Sun newspaper. We thought it was a good way to reach people. Turns out it was, but the abuse we got in the Sun newspaper was unbelievable. You can read the comments section if you're ever interested, just to see what people are like. This guy said, breaking news, 2 people with massive salaries, help from parents, no kids, and massive amount of time, save money, then wear some dungarees and holier than thou hippie specs and tell everyone where they're going wrong. My life has been enriched, guys. It's interesting. I wore specs because I couldn't see and I didn't have any help from my parents, but they seem to have made that up. But they just abuse you. Like, we did that article to try and help people take control of their finances. And this is the classic. Helen said, sponging off parents doesn't count. Talking about stirring the pot to annoy honest, decent people who may not have a lot but do everything for themselves because they're honest and decent. Not all of us are spoilt brats. Did you know we're spoilt brats, Katie?
Apparently we are.
Who get their bum wiped by mummy and daddy. A lot of us even have parents who could afford to do so but won't. Sounds like she's a bit bitter about her parents not helping her. But it's interesting.
This is the sort of stuff that comes out when you say, hey, look, I've done this thing, I've figured out my money, I would like to help other people to do the same. And that's when you get attacked. This stuff comes out, and that is indicative of how our society works as a whole. And that is why we're not, as a society, as a culture, talking about money and thinking about ways to improve our situation collectively, because things like this happen when people are successful. The other thing is that we have generations of Brits, and I'm sure this is true in other countries around the world, that believe that they are terrible at maths, that they are scared of maths. In fact, one survey said that more than 1 in 3, so if you line up 3 people, on average, more than one of them says that doing maths makes them feel anxious. And to take
So they're going to be excited about doing their finances, aren't they?
exactly, like if you're so scared of numbers, like finances and figuring out your money involves numbers. There's other aspects to it as well, as we'll come on to. But if you're that scared of doing maths, and this next one was even more shocking, that 1 in 5 are so fearful, it makes them feel physically sick to think about numbers, to think about maths, to think about something that is so integral to the way life works. You go to the shops, you need to like deal with numbers to buy something. It's part of our world, and it's something that people are terrified of.
So this is how we've ended up here. This is how then the finance industry profits from making this stuff seem complex, so that we need an independent financial advisor. We need these people to help us work this stuff out. And this problem affects everyone. And I think one of the things we've realized over the years is money is the only game you all have to play. Don't care who you are. Like, you can avoid playing tennis, you can avoid going to running club, you can avoid playing Monopoly if you want to.
If I avoid playing tennis, does that mean I avoid wearing that sweatband?
But you cannot avoid playing the game of money or finances. We all have to play it, but no one teaches us the rules.
And there's certain factors that people think that make people like better or worse at playing this game. Formal education, completely irrelevant when it comes to helping you be good with your finances. We had someone that came on Rebel Finance School on a debt case study. He was an extremely clever guy, had a master's degree, was studying for a PhD, and he had £15,000 in credit card debt. As we've seen, you're not taught this stuff at school. So why would having a formal education and to be well educated, you know, formally in academic system, why on earth would that mean that we're good at money?
And interestingly, does the job, so you've got a quality job, you've got a good job, does that mean you're good with money? Like, from what we've seen, no, it makes no difference. Like, we met one of the key people in the police who was really struggling with their finances, had a great income, but was constantly hitting the limit on all of their different cards, constantly in debt and cycling round and struggling on it. You can have a great job, but it doesn't mean you're good with finances. You can also have a bad job and be good with finances. It's
Exactly.
kind of not the key factor.
And I had both of these combos. So I'm quite well educated. If you think of it in the traditional sense, I have a first degree in statistics. You know, that's numbers and money. I used to work in finance. I was an actuary. I worked in insurance. I worked with spreadsheets every day, highly skilled in terms of understanding numbers, but absolutely useless for learning about personal finances. Everything I know about personal finances has been self-taught from books, from podcasts, from meeting other people that have got on top of their money. So forget thinking that it's about the formal education, or, you know, I'm not educated, therefore I will never get ahead with money. I'm educated. It didn't help me at all.
It's also interesting. A lot of people say, well, income's the obviously fix to it. If you've got high income, you'll be fine. Two things. The first debt case study we ever did, they had a huge income and a huge debt to go along with it, like 250 grand secured against houses and credit cards. They found it easier to get out because of their income, but people with big incomes end up in big messes. And you take my dad as a classic example. He had an incredible income and went bankrupt for £3.6 million. Just because you're good at making money doesn't mean you're good at managing money.
Exactly. So income level, completely irrelevant. So we've talked a lot about the problem, you know, the fact that we're not allowed to talk about money, the fact we're not taught, and we're not allowed to talk about money. So what's the solution? Well, first of all, I think we need to stop treating people differently. It's almost like there's kind of 2 tiers. So there's people on low income or low education or an unskilled job versus a higher income, more formal education and a skilled job. And then there's almost like there's 2 categories of things that you could learn. So maybe like the basics, and you'll see I've put this inverted commas because I don't believe in it. basics, things like budgeting, how to, make sure you don't spend too much on a weekly shop, how to pay off debt. And then on the other side, the more advanced stuff.
Investing, planning for retirement and things like that. And we actually had a situation, we ran a program for a housing association and we wanted to help people with their finances. And one of the very first meetings, they said, you cannot talk to our tenants about investing. You will scare them off. They're just not ready for it. And it's like, they didn't want us to go outside the basics because they felt it would have a negative impact on their tenants, which was fascinating because the number one thing that we were told afterwards is, why did you not teach us the investing stuff? And even if you are in a low income job, you've been put in auto enrollment. You've been put into a pension. You need to understand it. Nearly everyone in our society now is an investor, whether they like it or not. But we go, okay, low income, low education, let's just teach them the basics, and no, too advanced for you. It'll scare them off. They can't do it. It's not right. It's almost like the system itself keeps people.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, you're not educated. You don't have a skilled job. You're not, have as much income. Therefore, we'll keep you in your box. We'll keep you there, that you're not allowed to learn this advanced stuff because it's somehow beyond you. And it's incredibly patronizing, and it keeps people stuck and trapped.
Then on the high income, they're like, well, you don't need the basics. It's beneath you. You need the advanced stuff because you've got a good job. And everyone who we've spoken to is like on the advanced stuff. We end up going back to the basics. It's like, do you have a gap? Do you know how much you're spending? Do you do this? Because they don't have a clue about it. And we need to stop treating people differently. There has to be a better way. So
using this same kind of quadrant thing, this is how I and we start to think about this, so that you can go the low income, low educated, high educated, and then the basics and the advanced. And actually, everyone needs to know this. And actually, everyone needs to know the advanced stuff, the so-called advanced stuff. Everyone needs to invest and plan for their retirement, because that responsibility has been given to us, to everyone, regardless of income level, education level, what job you have. We all have to do that. And then the same again for the higher educated, higher income people. Everyone needs to know this stuff.
They need to get the basics right.
And they need to get the basics right, because we've seen time and again, people want to rush on to the investing part, show me the sexy stuff, but actually they don't have those foundations strong. So this is how we like to think about it. We all need the same skills. There's people, there's good money management, and we all need to know this stuff, where the money goes, how much you have, avoiding debt, how to invest, and how to plan for your retirement. We all need those skills. So how do we get those skills? How do we make sure people are sort of protected? Or
it would be interesting. We are interested to know what you think as well. So if you've got some thoughts about this, put it in the comments. Are we crazy for wanting to teach investing to different people? Like in our course, we do 10 weeks, and the first 6 weeks are the basics, and then we have to hold everyone back from getting onto the investing first. But you do need to know it. You still need to know it.
And actually, we've called it basics and advanced, but we don't even think of it that way. It's almost like the foundations, and people want to build on some sandy, floppy foundations and start to invest, and then go, oh no, I've got my credit card bill and I can't pay that. Oh, I must sell some investments, and they get in a right pickle. So it's all about building those strong foundations first, regardless of your income level, education, and any of that stuff that we've discussed.
Jeff put an interesting comment in the chat saying life skills are so important, but lacking at skills. Parents with no skills or experience cannot teach children on resolving problems. It is fascinating, isn't it? Like, that's one of the things we found we actually have to do, like basic budgeting. Katie's just started running a free basic Excel skills course, because you can't talk about like money management until you know how to track all this stuff.
Yeah, and people freak out about spreadsheets in the same way that they freak out about maths, because they're kind of linked as well, aren't they? And like, oh, I don't do spreadsheets, oh, therefore I can't manage my money. And there's all these blockers that people put for themselves, and that are also given to us by probably well-meaning other people as well along the way.
So we could lobby for legislation, but we get the feeling this might be frustrating. Having worked with different government organisations over the year, it's not the quickest thing to do. So actually what we think is, it's not legislation, it's education. It's not legislation, it's education. If we can educate people, a lot of these issues go away. And we've been running finance school since 2020. We set it up in lockdown. We needed something to do. We wanted to help people with their biggest problems. So that's what we started to do.
And actually, if people are more educated and understood how things work, the preying on us
goes away.
Would go away, because people aren't going to fall for it or going to understand that it's not a good deal for them. And those would start to, fall away, to be replaced by fairer things, and there would be no need to legislate for it because people wouldn't go for it. So it would no longer be a viable product for people to sell.
Jeff says, how many banks offer money management? I'm aware of NatWest supporting business startups, but who else does? Jeff, I think banks do have a role to play. However, they are also incredibly biased. Banks offer the most startup support in the world because they give loans to startups, and that's how they make the money. And they actually perpetuate the belief that you need to borrow money to start a business. So I'm not sure they're the best people. They've got the cash to help us, though.
It's always thinking about people's agenda as well, isn't it? Yeah. It's, I need a haircut. If I ask a barber, do I need a haircut? They're probably going to say yes.
You ask a bank if you need a loan, they'll say yes. So you ask a bank if you want investments, they'll send you towards the investments that might not be the best for you, but it'll be the best income for them. It's cynical, but it's true. So what we thought we'd do is the next little bit. Over the last few years, we've been running Rebel Finance School, and we've helped a little over 12,000 people with their finances, and this is some of the stuff we've actually learnt. So here's the sort of top 5 or things we've learnt about financial inclusion, hoping to add value that you can take it away and do it yourself, use it yourself, or come up with these ideas with us. So here's the top 5. The first is about creating a community of people working on their finances. And we have a Facebook support group for the Rebel Finance School, which is about 5,000 people in it at the moment.
Yeah, it makes my heart feel very warm and happy, because people want to support each other in this. If we create an environment where it's okay to talk about money, not only is it okay, but encouraged, and wins are shared and celebrated, and things that don't go quite well, we can kind of commiserate together and pull back together and come up with a way forward. People want to help each other, and they get so much from this feeling of this shared experience of working on something so important together, and something that they're not allowed almost to talk about in the real world, outside of these communities bubbles that we're making. I just want to make those bubbles so big that they include everyone and we can all talk about it freely and openly.
I think the third thing we realize, you have to reach people where they are, and that Sun article helped us reach 5,000 people to help them with their finances. And the fascinating bit, 25% of Gen Zers are going to TikTok for their investing knowledge.
We need to
let that sink in for a moment. But you have to go to where people are, and we've started putting our courses on YouTube. And if you're a council or a housing association, you're going, how do you put a course on YouTube? How does this fit? How does you track the numbers? You have to go to where people actually are. You don't need to force them to come to a community centre in Banbury. Not that there's anything wrong with Banbury, but go to where people are and educate them where they are. Don't try and drag them in to a suited presentation. Deliver the information in a fun, engaging where they are. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things we've learned on this side.
We talked about the idea that, we've segregated people as to what they are and aren't ready for in learning, depending on their education level or where they're coming from. And that's absolutely wrong in my book. Don't exclude people because you've decided they're not ready. Because we all have to be ready now. We are all in auto enrollment. We are all investors, whether we like it or not.
The financial inclusion team was excluding people from learning things. Isn't that fascinating? And they need to learn, just exactly as Katie said, they need to learn this investing stuff. We did. And the final one, I think, is be aspirational at the right level. At the very start, when we were running courses, I think we put quite a few people off because we were talking about retiring early and all that stuff. People were like, that's impossible, it can't be done. And they would go away. Whereas actually in the latest course, we were talking about sorting out your finances so you can have a comfortable retirement, sorting out your finances, looking after yourself, creating the life you want to live. And it's about aspiration. People aren't going to come to the workshop in Banbury Community Centre.
Sorry.
Nothing's wrong with Banbury, I love Banbury, but the community centre that's about budgeting basics. Like, just stop running that stuff and do something more aspirational that will actually get people in and excited and wanting to do it. So there's some ideas about financial inclusion that we've started to learn that have made a difference in who we've helped. And it's a little bit about financial literacy.
Yeah, so I think the first one is understanding what's blocking people. And one of the big things that blocks people is what they believe about money and themselves. You can't teach people until they're receptive to learn, because people believe that it takes money to make money.
That's one of the biggest beliefs in the UK, is it takes money to make money. So I can't do any of this until I have money. But you have to smash that. And the like deleted bit after the sentence is, it takes money to make money. I don't have any, therefore it's impossible for me.
Exactly. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. I believe I'm in the poor camp, perhaps, therefore, what hope do I have? It's kind of giving away all your power and saying, well, there's nothing I can do because this is how it is. I'm poor. I will just get poorer.
And then realistically, chances are I will never be rich, which the deleted part of that sentence is, so don't bother trying. And these beliefs need to change first before you can even get people in. Because if people don't think it's possible, why would they spend their time learning about it? They just don't. Yeah,
they're not going to be receptive and open to learning about something that they think is impossible, and it's a futile exercise perhaps to even start thinking about this stuff. No one cares about like details and budgeting and, you know, I have to track my spending and I have to know how much I have, until they have that why. Like, what are we building towards? What life do you want? How would you like things to be? What age might you quite like to retire? How would you like to spend that time? Why are you doing this? Not like, okay, let's get you in and we'll think about all these details and I'm going to force you to do all this stuff that you don't want to do, so that some future you, years off in the distance, is going to have some average payoff. No, it doesn't work like that. We have to start with the why. We have to get people excited, and then they're going to be chomping at the bit, wanting to build that future and build that thing that they've envisioned and imagined for themselves.
Which a lot of the financial education stuff, you look on the bank sites, you look on different places, talk about spending less. And basically, good finances is taught as being deprived. You have to deprive yourself from everything that brings you joy, and then maybe in the future you'll be okay.
And I think that's something that people misinterpret from the, you know, the press articles that we've had written about us, like, oh, they must have been terribly unhappy and depriving themselves for years, and I would never want to live like that. We never have seen it like that at all, have we?
No, we saw it as buying our freedom. Every penny we saved, every penny we invested, every expensive Starbucks coffee I avoided was a step closer to having the freedom to go on holidays, to retire, to spend my time what I wanted.
And even starting a bit before that, so using that first bit of money to buy your freedom in the sense of having an emergency fund. If something happens, things go wrong, having a bit of money set aside so that you don't have to go into debt to cope with it. Maybe you are in some debt and you can use the money that you're earning, create a gap between what you earn, what you spend, and buy your freedom in the sense of paying off.
You're not controlled by the debt.
Exactly, paying off the debt, not paying interest to the banks and the credit cards. These little steps towards buying your freedom, freedom of not having debt, freedom of having a bit of pot of money to have more options, and then eventually building up to the freedom of full retirement. Maybe it isn't even full retirement, maybe it's semi-retirement, but it's that freedom of options. And it starts right from the beginning of starting to build a little bit of, you know, emergency fund to protect you from things when things happen.
Well, the emergency fund is fascinating. There was a recent study that came out where one charity proposed that if we could help people have £1,000 emergency fund, we would save 500,000 people a year from going into debt. Because when the car breaks down, when the washing machine breaks, when things go wrong, you don't have to go into debt to do it. It's unbelievable. What the small things make a huge difference, and you buy your freedom. And having a credit card at 40% interest with a 10 grand balance is financial slavery. You're basically working to give your money to the financial institutions rather than looking after yourself. One of the things we like to think we do, but maybe we don't. We did have one guy who said we were not funny at all. But we try and make finances fun. Like, we have jokes, we have lots of innuendos about being taxed at both ends.
About how big is your gap, like we just have fun with it. And I hope you can get from our energy that we're passionate about this, and that comes across as well. And as we're having fun teaching and sharing our ideas, people absorb that energy. And we talk about how to make finances fun as well with each other and with your family. So we talk about having a monthly finance meeting. How could you make that fun? For Alan, fun is going out for breakfast, having eggs Benedict. That's how we have fun. For other people, it's having a glass of wine after dinner and talking about money. How can we make this something that we attach pleasure to rather than pain? Because often it's like, oh, the pain of my money and the pain of not having enough. I don't even want to look at it because it's just pain, pain, pain. Make it pleasurable, make it fun. And then people are going to be so much more receptive to learning and like, yes, it's fun. Let's go back to learn more. And you can start to get addicted to it because you start to see progress as well. And it's that snowball effect of getting more and more improvements and changes in your life and seeing what difference it can make.
Step-by-step guide, breaking it down and making it simple makes a really big difference. So we have these sort of steps to getting wealthy, which starts with saving an emergency fund, getting out of debt, building a fully funded emergency fund, and a clear pathway all the way through to retirement makes it so much easier to be able to work on.
Exactly. And it's that whole pathway, and it is from the beginning as well. So it's saying, okay, start from those foundations that we talked about earlier.
And then the final bit is we wanted to teach people to think for themselves. So it's interesting, people come to us and go, I've got my pension, which one of these funds should I invest in? We don't want to have to tell people. We want people to be able to read that stuff, to be able to read a pension statement and understand which fund to choose. We want people to be able to look at, I've got an investment property over here and I've got this over there. Or actually, like, I could make this purchase. I could buy it on finance, or I could pay outright. Which one's best for me? And if you can teach people to actually think about the financial decisions they make every day, because every day we make like 1,000 different financial decisions that have a long-term impact.
Even, people's buying strategy. Should I buy this thing or not? Most people just go Amazon, one click. Oh, it's too late. I've already bought it. Okay, maybe you can inspire people to have a different strategy that might have different results. So it's, do I actually want this thing? Do I actually need this thing? Can I afford this thing? I feel like I can afford it. I feel like I want it. I feel like I need it. Maybe I put it in my basket, and if I still want it in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, whatever the time period is, then I will buy it. And that's teaching people, how might you think then? And that's an example, and say, okay, what would work for you? What have you seen work well for you in the past? And to come up with their own ideas to empower themselves, and they like, this will work for me because I've thought about it. And it's that old analogy, isn't it? Teach a person to fish versus giving them a fish. And that's exactly what we want to do. And we're passionate about helping people to be able to do that without us holding their hand saying exactly what to do, because that doesn't serve anyone.
It doesn't. So we've been teaching people to think about money since we launched this little thing called Rebel Finance School. This year's course ended up going in 43 countries, which is insane. You'll see right in the middle there, 80% of people were in the UK, but we reached 43 countries and over 6,000 people came to the course, which is just insane when you think of the old school ways of doing it and running courses in the room like we used to, as opposed to going online, YouTube, reaching different people. It's insane. How do we actually do it? We have a 10-week course that we give away once a year. We write a huge amount of blog articles. We've started to create YouTube videos, which Katie's really enjoyed that.
Including an Excel skills for beginners, which we launched last week and is happening once a week for the next 6 weeks.
We have the Facebook support group, and then we built a retirement calculator so you can see when you can retire. Well, Katie did. She's the brains behind the operation.
Don't diminish yourself, Alan.
And the course has kind of been steadily growing. The first time we did in lockdown had 133 people show up, which we were blown away by. In 2021, we had 346 people turn up. Then we were featured in The Sun and we had 5,000 people turn up. Then I was featured in iNews and we've had over 6,000 people without the course actually fully coming to an end. So I think it'll be more like 8 or 9 by the time we actually get to the end of it. And I think the thing we're most proud of is no one has ever paid to come on our courses. The business school courses are sponsored by housing associations and local governments, and then we give it away free to the community. These courses, we've just been given it away for free up until now. And we're going to continue to do that. We just want to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, it costs money to do this sort of thing. And if we want, we want to grow, we want to reach more and more people. So we're excited to see where we could find more people and help more people.
Exactly. We run this 10-week course, which covers everything from how big is your gap, where does your money go, talking about money to your friends, dealing with your money beliefs, how to get out of debt, then goes on to the advanced stuff of investing, ISAs, SIPs, practical investing and future planning. And the outcomes have been unbelievable. This was a message in the Facebook 6 hours ago. I cut it out this afternoon. We started the course last year and never got to finish it due to some personal circumstances. The ones we did watch had such an impact on us, we became obsessed with clearing our debt. This debt has been in our lives for the past 10 years due to bad decisions and life occurring, but with no emergency fund, credit card was always required to fix these breakdowns, which is why we're talking about that stuff. This debt has been the only cause of arguments in our marriage and has caused many sleepless nights. Like, debt is a huge problem.
It's a massive anchor as well, isn't it? And as this person said as well, that it causes upset and anguish and arguments, and yeah, it's not a good thing.
And this weekend marks the last of our debt repaying, as we've cleared just over 35k of debt through sheer determination and hard work, no inheritance or gifted money. And boy, does it feel good. Onwards and upwards now to grow the emergency fund from its current grand to cover us for 6 months. I thought this group would appreciate my joy, and we do. And
that's what we're talking about earlier, about being able to share that with people and creating an environment where people want to share it and want to share their successes and know that people aren't going to drag them down and be like, well, it's all right for you, and oh, I haven't done that. And having that environment where people feel like they can share it is an added motivator to get their finances sorted so that they can share it and have a place to share it as well.
Kelly wrote a fantastic comment in the chat. She said, we attended this course last year and our 16-year-old joined us. If they weren't available, they asked us to delay watching it so we could watch it together. Really proud that they wanted to learn about finances. That is incredible. I love that. One last one about emergency funds. We blanked out the names just to protect the people in the finance group. They said, just wanted to say thank you to Alan and Katie for the great advice on saving an emergency fund. Just had the dishwasher repaired, costing £180, and was able to get the engineer to come out quickly, paid out of the emergency fund. Previously, we would have had to stick it on a credit card. The feeling of having the funds to deal with an emergency was wonderful. No stress involved. I will be replacing the funds next month as we have created a good gap now. Awesome.
So gap, we talk about a lot in Rebel Finance School, is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. So they're saying that they've created a good gap.
Yes, and they say, thank you for saving us having to wash up by hand for another 6 people. That's our pleasure. So our mission, like what we're doing, and hopefully this is where we can tie it into what you're doing, because I know you're all doing incredible things within your organizations, your businesses, your families. But our mission is to help people get out of debt, to take control of their finances, to invest for their retirement, to feel empowered with their finances and money, and then to create their version of an extraordinary life, whatever extraordinary means to them.
Yeah, and we want to work with other people on this. We want to help as many people as we can, to collaborate, to work together and find more people to help and learn from other people and understand what can we do to serve people more. We want to work with you on this. Will you be part of our Rebel Alliance?
The Rebel Finance School had to have a Rebel Alliance, wouldn't it?
We're so geeky, aren't we? I love it.
And I think we'd love to know how we can work with you, because we have some skills in areas that we are very good at and others we're not. And together we can achieve so much more. So what does this mean? It could mean bringing the content we created already to your community and promoting it and helping us reach people and building on top of what you've already done.
Maybe it means sponsoring a program, and again, another way of helping us to reach more people and develop more things and more ways of helping.
It could mean sponsoring a program for your business, your community, whatever area you're working in. It could mean we're going to launch a board, the Rebel Alliance, the Rebel Finance Board, to help us stay on track with doing more. And we want to meet once a month and work on the best ways to increase financial inclusion and improve financial literacy across the UK and the world.
Maybe you'd like to volunteer your time to help us to organise the courses that we do, to create content, whatever that means, that, you know, the skills that you have that could help with reaching more people and helping as much as we can.
Maybe you know someone in the media and you can help us find the people to support, because the biggest challenge always, like, we're pretty good at it, getting 6,000 people to come on a course, but the biggest challenge as always is reaching the communities that need it the most.
We've written a book. We've written a book all about personal finance and how to be the hero of your own financial journey. And we're looking for publishers and agents. If that's you, or you know someone that could help us reach more people with the book, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe
you'd like to sponsor content that actually reaches people where they are. If you want to reach Gen Zers, maybe we need to do a TikTok channel together. Maybe we need to create a set of YouTube videos together, but let's reach people where they actually are and create content that moves and inspires and changes. And there's going to be a whole load of stuff that we haven't thought of that you think that we could or should be doing, either us or separately or together. Please tell us what we can do and what we haven't thought of. So if you'd like to give us a hand, please take out your phone, send an email to finance@the-rebel school, or you can just scan that QR code and it will automatically bring it up with the subject financial literacy. Send us a message and we'll reply with like ideas and suggestions, and then maybe we can actually do something together. We would really like your support to reach as many people as possible, and maybe we can support you with your programs, your adventures, your mission to do what you're doing as well. If it ties into what we're doing, we'd be very honoured. Yeah, we'd love to learn what you're doing and what you found works and what we can learn from each other and help each other be on the same mission together.